Hello and welcome to another video of this course. My name is Saurav Krishnan and today we can learn Python in more detail. Before we get into the slideshow, make sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video and share it to others and also recommend them to subscribe. I will encourage doubts to be asked in the comment box, so please do not hesitate to ask any kind of questions in the YouTube comment box down below. So without further ado, let's get started into the slideshow. Firstly, we can discuss the agenda for today. What is an IDE? Examples of IDE, what are data types and what are variables. So let's get started with the first topic. What is an IDE? An IDE or Integrated Development Environment is a place where you write your code. It is more like a text editor, but it allows you to do much more than a text editor. It helps you to run your code within it rather than accessing an external unit like command prompt and or CMD. Two examples of IDEs which we'll be using in our course are given in the next slide. The two very important IDEs, PyCharm and Jupyter Notebook, are the very useful IDEs which we will be using further in our course. But for the time being, we will be using a very basic IDE known as IDLE, which you get when you install Python, and which is what we actually looked before in our last video, the introduction. So we did some code in that IDLE. Now we can get into this next slide. Data types. What are data types? Data types are the classification or categorization of data items. It represents the kind of value that tells what operation can be performed on a particular data. That is, if the data given is in the form of a number, then you can add, multiply, divide, and subtract. But if the data is in the form of an alphabet or alphabet, then you can make it in lowercase, uppercase, toggle case, and so on. So if you need to divide your data, then you can do certain operations with it. So if you only divide your data, then you can classify, you can do certain operations and give the correct output to the user. So that is why you need to categorize data into four important data types known as strings, integers, floats, and boolean. Now we can take a detailed look at the four important data types. Strings. Strings can be alphabets, numbers, or even both. It can be only numbers or only alphabets, but sometimes both. For example, I am studying in India's number one university. In this sentence, alphabets as well as a number are present. Or take another example like my name is Saurav Krishnan. In that sentence, only alphabets are present. Or another example like 50, 100, 10. Only numbers are present. So strings can contain numbers, alphabets, or in some cases, both of them mixed together. So strings are called alphanumeric. Strings should be written inside quotes. The quotes can be either single quotes or double quotes. The next data type we are going to discuss is integers. That is, they do not need quotes. They are basically whole numbers. Okay, that is, they do not have a decimal point. They do not need quotes, and these are the numbers which we use for mathematical operations. But if numbers are written inside of quotes or in the you're trying to do like addition with two numbers, but one plus one you have written it inside quotes. So if you are trying to do the addition and get the sum out of it, then you cannot do it because it is written inside quotes and it is considered as strings. Okay, but yeah, okay. So the next primary data type is known as float. floats also do not need codes. They are used for mathematical operations, and only one difference is there. They are decimal numbers like 1.2, 1.0, and 5.6. Okay. The last and the final primary data type is Boolean values. Okay, that is to check whether a condition is true or false. Now you do not need to worry about that Boolean values because we will be going into that in detail. Okay, now we can go to the next slide, and in this slide we are going to check what type of data value a variable contains. In certain conditions, you may not know what the data type of the value in the variable is. Example is you are taking input from the user and it is asking the age of the user. And you are expecting the user to enter the data in words, but there can be chances where the user enters data in numbers, right? So you may have to know that the type of value in the variable to do the operations with it, right? So in order to know the type of value, you will use the type function, type, and you have to put the brackets. So that is a function, and this returns the type of the variable. We have not gone into variables yet, but it is okay. Just remember the format, type, and brackets. Inside that, inside the brackets, you put the name of the variable. It returns values such as int, which stands for integer, str, string, float, and bool for boolean. The format is very simple. Okay, just remember the format, type, parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis you put the name of the variable. So we can move on to the next slide discussing what are variables and how to name them and all. What are variables? Uh, as you have already learned what are data types. Okay, and now it will be very easy for you to understand what are variables. Normally we learn about variables first and then we move on to data types. That is the usual syllabus, but I hope before you learn about variables we need to learn about the value we can put in it. And now how can we actually define what are variables? We can define it with an example. Imagine variables as envelopes that contain your letter, which is information. So the variables are small units which store information or data. They do not store the data permanently, that is, they will be deleted once a program is closed. The next point is it can be of any name, but the names of the variables should be according to the rules of naming them. We can take a look at the rules of naming variables, right? So we can move on to the next slide. How to name variables. The first rule is that the name of the variable should not start with any number. That is, example like one name, two name. It should not start with any number. However, it can end with a number like name 1, name 2, name 3, etc. It can't be reserved words, that is, the words which are specifically used for certain operations in Python. One example is the type function that we learned before. If you type in, if you use the type name for the name of the variable, then you will get an error because it is a reserved word. It is already used in Python. Okay. The next rule is it should not contain any other special character other than underscore. Okay, and the names of the variables are separated using underscore. It should not contain space. If you write like name space or space person space, then that you will get an error, and the program can't move any further. Instead, you have to name the variables like name underscore of person, and a name underscore of underscore person. Then the computer will accept that value. So always remember this rule. The next rule is not a compulsory rule, but I still thought I will include this. Always use meaningful names for your variables instead of naming them of the English alphabets like A, B, C, etc. This is very useful because when you work with bigger projects, then you will almost properly share your code with another person for a reference. So when you use these alphabets for the names of variables, that person may not understand the code. That is why I am suggesting you to use meaningful names for variables. That is, a third person may not understand the code if you use alphabets like A, B, C instead of meaningful names. So that's the end of the slideshow. Now we can apply all that we have discussed in the slideshow to practice. So get ready with your IDLE and we can practice everything that we have discussed before. So here I am in the IDLE window. So when you open IDLE, you get to see the shell of Python, that is the console of Python. And in here, you could see all these information, type help, copyright credits or license for more information. And you can also see the date and the details, which version it is, Python 3.7.9. Okay, and that is pretty much everything you could see about you could see in IDLE. Now here you could see you could only type one line of code here. Okay, so but if you click on new file over here, then you could type multiple lines of code like this and you can run it. I'm closing it for now. Okay, so if you want to type multiple lines of code, you have to open a new file. If you just want one line of code to be written, then you can type it in the shell or the console. So this is what you call an IDE. This helps you to debug it. This helps you to run your code within it. It is better than a text editor. That is why you use an IDE for running your code. So you can see here, if you type, if you type notepad, okay. If I type the same code I typed there, you could see there is a difference. First of all, the print is not highlighted. Okay, and this actually accepts this text as normal text. This is not a code. It is for the notepad window. It is not a code, but it is just normal text. So that is why you are not using notepad and all for running your code, and you are using IDEs for running your code. So we have discussed our first topic, which is what is an IDE. Now we can move on to the next topic, data types. But before that, I want to explain the print function to you. The print function is very simple. You can type in print and you can put the brackets. And inside of the brackets, you can type in the value that you want to be shown on the screen, just like this. Okay. So if you type in what can I say? You type in 123, so you can see 123 is printed on screen. So if you type in the hello world, you can see hello world is printed on the screen. So if you whenever you want to show an item, show a value on the screen, you have to use the print function in Python. So we have briefly discussed about the print function. Now, if you have any doubts on this function, then please do not hesitate to ask the questions in the comment box, or if you do, I will reply to this. If you do not understand it, even though after I replied, then I will put a video on this specifically for you to understand. So please don't hesitate to uh, put the comments or ask the questions in the comment box. So the next thing we can discuss what are data. First data type that we have learned is strings. Okay, strings, as you can see, this is a string because this is put in quotes. This is also a string. So you learn that strings need quotes, right? So I'm putting single quotes for now. And inside this, you can type in whatever you want. Suppose I'm typing hello, and when I press enter, you can see that hello is printed. So if I type hello simply without quotes, you could see there is an error shown on the screen. That is, strings should always contain quotes. That is one important thing. Next is it can be alphabets or numbers. So like this, 1 2 3, it can be numbers, or it can be alphanumeric, A1 B2. Okay, like that. So that value is also accepted. So strings can be alphabets, numbers, or sometimes alphanumeric. So we have discussed about strings briefly. I'm going through this very fast because I think this will extend the length of the video, and I am going very fast in this and trying to go very fast. So the next thing is about integers. And my integers do not need codes, just like 12, 13, like this. They do not need codes. That value is accepted, and these can be used for mathematical calculations. I'm not going through the mathematical calculations in detail, but you can see 1 plus 1 gives you the answer as 12. But if you put it in the quotes, the 1 plus 1, then you can see the same question is printed on the screen. So that is why I'm telling you, do not use um, um, do not use codes if you in integers if you want to use them for mathematical calculations. So the next value is about the floating point numbers, that is basically decimal numbers. So you can type in 12.3, and you see that value is accepted and it's printed on the screen. So that is also working, and the final value is about boolean. If you type in true, and how do you type in this? Capital letter T, a small letter R, U, and E. So that you can see this is highlighted, and that means this is a third word. And what do you mean by the third word? The third words are words which are used in Python for extra, that is the built-in functions in Python. So do not use reserved words for the names of the variables. That is one rule which we learned. And this is a reserved word. And if you tap enter, you could see that value is also accepted. At the same time, false. If let's see, you have to type it in the same format because Python is very case sensitive. Okay, so if you press enter, you can see that value is also accepted. Now you don't need to worry about this boolean values because we will be going through that in much detail. Okay, in the future videos we'll be building a base for our tic-tac-toe game, and then you can see the use of these true or false values. So, and we have finished everything of data types, and now we are moving on to variables. So first, select a name for your variable. Select a meaningful name. So that is, I am putting num. Okay, and I am referring that to 1 2 3, 1 2 3, and you can see the format in here. This is the name of the variable. This is the assignment operator, or the operator which you use to assign values to. Okay, so if you put num equals to 1 2 3, then num, the value num is 1 2 3. The value of num is 1 2 3. This number over here. So the moment I press enter, you can see nothing is going returned, but no errors also. So if you type in print num, just like this, you could see the value is printed. And you could also notice one thing, that I have not used quotes for this. If I use quotes, it will print out num as it is and will not print the value in it. Okay, so that is one thing you have to keep in your mind. Do not use quotes for variable names also. And Python is very case sensitive. If I use capital letter NUM, then you can see an error is printed out. So we don't want that error, right? So you have to put it in small letters as you have defined it at the first. So you can see that value is printed out and no error is there. Now we have discussed about how to assign a variable to integer value. Now we have to discuss it how to assign it to a string value. So I am typing in name. Okay, you can see I am putting Saurav, and you can see that value is accepted, and you can also see that I have put it in quotes. So this is a string, and I have put the assignment operator, which is equals to. And if I type name or print name, actually print name, okay, you can see that value Saurav is printed on screen. So we have discussed about integer values, string values, and now we can go into the um, the float values. So value for 12.3, and that value is also accepted. If I print in value, you see that 12.3 is printed on the screen. Now the final one, boolean types. So boolean underscore types, you can see I am using underscore here, that is to separate two words of the variable. Okay, so it's equals to boolean types is equals to, I am using true over here, and that value is also accepted. Okay, you could see the boolean types value is equals to true is also accepted. Now I am printing out this just like this over here, and you could see that value true is printed. Now the next value is about false. So boolean underscore types is equals to false. So if I type like this, what about the value which I defined earlier? So again, I am using the same name, same case for defining another variable false. So what this does is, it will erase this value and insert this new value over here. Okay, so we can see, and if I print in boolean types, you could see I'll get false. Okay, so that is this erased, the computer erased the true value and inserted new value called false. So that is pretty much everything about data types. And next we are going to go into the type, or how to check the type of variable. So we have finished data types and variables. Now we are going to go into how to check the type of variables. So in order to check the type of the variables, you need to use the type function. So the format is very simple: type and brackets. Inside this, you have to put the name of the variable. So firstly, I am defining a variable, or we have defined variables already, right? So now I am typing in type brackets, and inside the brackets, name of variable, that is num. So when I press enter, I get class int. This int is the one you have to focus on. Int means integer. Okay, short for integer. The next type is the string. Okay, so you should get str. You could see I got class is str. Str means string. Okay, short for string. Next is the float value type of sorry. Okay. You could see I get float, and the last and the final one, which is boolean types. So type boolean. Boolean. Okay. Types. So you can see the value is bool. That is boolean, short for boolean. So that's the end of the video. We have discussed about what is an IDE, what are data types, what are variables, and we have also put those into practice. So that is the end of this video. So I have put a lot of effort on this one video, so please support me by subscribing to this channel, liking this video, and sharing it to others so that they can also subscribe and know much about Python. So please do not forget to do these steps. It is a very simple deed which can support me in huge. So please do not forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.